The following is a Cable 14 special presentation.
We want to acknowledge that the city of Hamilton is situated upon traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, North America. And we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers.
And welcome to our Cable 14 2025 Provincial Election Debates, presented in partnerships with our good friends at the Hamilton Spectator. I'm Mike Fortune, and for the next hour and a half, I'll be your moderator as we feature candidates from the riding of Hamilton Mountain. Joining us live in studio, we have from the Liberal Party, Don Danko. From the Ontario NDP Party, we have Kojo Damptey. And from the Green Party, we have Josh Chernega. Thank you all very much for being here and making the time. For everyone here in studio at Cable 14, thank you for making the time for our Hamilton Mountain Provincial Election Debate. We do appreciate that. Monica Sorello from the Progressive Conservative Party was invited to participate, but due to scheduling conflicts, she informed us she was unfortunately unavailable to attend. Also running in Hamilton Mountain are Ijaz Butt, an independent candidate, Dan Preston, representing the None of the Above Direct Democracy Party, Layla Marie Angela Protopapa of the New Blue Party, and Bing Wong, representing the Ontario Party. Each of these candidates had an opportunity to make a recorded statement, and those who provided one will have it included in this broadcast a little later. The format tonight includes 2 minutes for each candidate to make an opening statement. Then, we'll be inviting 3 members of our local media. They're going to be posing some questions to the candidates. Please keep each of your responses to no more than a minute. I will be coming in to cut you off if needed. We will also be putting forward questions that have been submitted by viewers, but more on that in just a moment. Then after hearing the other candidates' statements and another round of media questions, we'll have an open floor debate where each candidate will be able to bring up a topic of their choice. And finally, we'll finish off with a 1-minute closing statement from each of our candidates here with us. For our viewers at home, listen, thank you so much for watching. And if you are watching, make sure to tweet us on X at Cable14 or email election@cable14.com to share any questions that you would like us to ask your candidates here in studio. Please remember to include your first name and what neighborhood in the Hamilton Mountain you live in. Well, folks, that completes all the housekeeping. Let's get started with the 2-minute opening statements. Starting off with the Liberal Party, Don Danko. Don, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everyone. My name is Don Danko. I'm your Ontario Liberal Party candidate for the Hamilton Mountain. And you know me. I've lived, worked, and raised my family here on the Hamilton Mountain for over 22 years. Your kids may have been on the same hockey team or flag football team. We may have volunteered together. You may have been my patient at Juravinski Cancer Center, or maybe you worked with me at Mohawk College. You've read about me in the newspaper. You've seen me on the news at 6. You know who I am. You know what I stand for. You know I am capable, and you know if elected, I will work hard for you. I've served the mountain community as a public school board trustee for the past 10 years, including chair of the board during the pandemic. I've worked in healthcare and education, and I know firsthand what the deliberate underfunding has done to those specific sectors. They are in crisis because of the Doug Ford government. I've also seen the completely ineffective and increasing radical NDP that's been unable to hold the Doug Ford government accountable or achieve anything for the Hamilton Mountain. We need real leadership that will deliver real results for the very real problems that we face. Instead of the scandals we've seen with Ford or the silence from the NDP, the Ontario Liberal Party has a fully costed plan that includes tax cuts, rent control, reducing housing costs, doubling ODSB, improving healthcare access, adding mental health to OHIP, investments in education, and more. We are in the middle of a winter election that nobody wants, nobody needs, at the cost of $189 million to taxpayers. And this is because Doug Ford is looking out for himself, he's not looking out for you, and he's not looking out for me. The Conservative Party candidate isn't here tonight. I know they're invited, and I think only one is attended across the province. What does that tell us about how that government functions if our candidates can't come and speak to us here? We have an opportunity to send Doug Ford a clear message, and I encourage people to get informed, vote for proven leadership, vote Don Danko and the Ontario Liberal Party this election.
Thank you very much, Don Danko from the Ontario Liberal Party. Up next, from the new Democratic Party, Kojo Damptey.
Good evening. Before I start, I would like to thank MPP Monique Taylor for her public service to the Hamilton residents for the last 14 years. My name is Kojo Damptey, and I am your proud Ontario NDP candidate for Hamilton Mountain, taking over from MPP Monique Taylor. I have spent my life here in Hamilton standing up for Hamiltonians on critical issues that matter to you, and I intend and promise to do the same at Queen's Park. In the last 7 years, we've seen Doug Ford's Conservatives underfund our critical public education, our healthcare sector. We've also seen increasing property taxes. We're seeing increasing rents. And this is affecting you. This is affecting me. This is affecting working people, seniors, young families, businesses. We're seeing higher rents, long wait times in our hospitals, and cuts to education systems that we depend on. At this time, we need leaders that can solve these problems. As an engineer, a community leader, an executive leader, and a current PhD student, I have shown that I can solve these problems. I've done that here in Hamilton, whether it's restructuring the City of Hamilton's Board of Health, and whether it's supporting community members in various ways. I ask for your vote on February 27th. Vote Kojo Damptey, because the Ontario NDP is the only party that will fight for you, for me, and for our entire Hamilton community. Thank you.
One more time from the Ontario NDP Party, it's Kojo Damptey. Kojo, thank you for that. And we move on now from the Ontario Green Party, Joshua Chernega. Joshua.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Josh Chernega, and I'm running to be the next MPP for Hamilton Mountain under the Green Party banner. I'll start by thanking organizers, my fellow candidates, and most importantly, you, the people of Hamilton Mountain, because this debate isn't about me or any of us. This is about your families and the future that you want to build for Hamilton. I was raised by hardworking parents right here on the Hamilton Mountain. Born on Queensdale, I was taught the value of community, fairness, and standing up for what is right. As a teacher of 17 years in the community, I've seen the struggles families face every day. I've watched parents work multiple jobs just to afford rent. I've seen kids come to school hungry because grocery costs are too high. I've met families with desperate for health care and waiting months and sometimes years to get the services they need. And I've spoken with small businesses in our community, owners who put their heart and soul into the work that they do, but just can't catch a break in this community. As a teacher, I know the education isn't just about classrooms. It's about opportunity, hope, and a better future. We need smaller class sizes, better support for students with special needs, and real investment in public education so every child can thrive. I'm not a career politician. I'm a teacher, a neighbor, and someone who cares deeply about the Hamilton Mountain community. I want Hamilton Mountain to be or where no one is left behind, where families can afford to live and where our kids have a bright future. Tonight, You'll hear a lot of promises from the other parties, but ask yourself, who truly understands what you're going through? Who will fight for you? Not just during an election, but every day. And I hope you'll vote for me.
To Josh Chernega, Kojo Damptey, and Don Danko, thank you all for your opening statements. We do appreciate that. Now it's time to bring in our local media representatives. Tonight, from the Hamilton Spectator, we have Sebastian Braun. From CHCH, Manisa Donabalan News. And from the CBC, it's Eva Salinas. Each of them will choose a candidate to answer their question first, and then we'll open up the topic to any other candidates who wish to speak to it. We do ask you to keep your responses to no more than 1 minute, and if I have to, I will come in. Our first question will be coming from the Hamilton Spectator's very own Sebastian Braun. Sebastian.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Kojo, over the past month, Don's campaign has repeatedly criticized your social activism. In a release yesterday, they accused you of putting ideological interests like abolishing the police and supporting encampments over the safety interests of mountain residents. How do you respond to that?
Thank you. I believe in real community safety. That means properly funding our social services. We're talking about mental health, we're talking about substance use, we're talking about issues around homelessness. I think those are the things that we have to invest in, because under Doug Ford, that social safety net has been erased. And so we're seeing these problems crop up as community safety and public safety. So we need to make those investments. And I think our chief of police, Frank Bergen, has also acknowledged that police are spending time on things they are not trained for. So this is what I have been talking about.
Kojo, thank you very much for that response. It's now open forum if anyone else would like to answer that particular question. Dawn?
Thank you. And I think there's some things that we agree on, and that is that crime safety is very important, and that it's not just about addressing crime, but there's often mental health supports that are needed. And we've seen those mental health supports cut under the Doug Ford government. Under a liberal government, we will invest in police officers because that is part of what we need. You know, we had our car stolen out of our driveway this summer. Neighborhoods are sharing their webcams at their doorbells so that they can understand when someone's going through their neighborhood. We've had some critical incidences at Lime Ridge Mall that make people really worried about their safety. But under a liberal government, we will put mental health under OHIP and make that universal so it's available to everyone. And that is one of the key things we can do in addition to having mobile teams that help with mental health crises and issues.
Open forum if anyone else would like to respond.
So I believe, truthfully, that we need to have a good policing system in our community. And I think that's by providing our police with the proper training that they need. And that's something that we'll invest in as the Green Party on Hamilton Mountain and within the Hamilton community to make sure that we are investing in them getting the proper training they need. The Chief of Police has also called for proper training. He's asked for people to get more funding so that he can give training to his officers so that they'll understand. Much like the Liberals, we will also put mental health under the OHIP system. And I think we're going to create wraparound supports. Those are what are desperately needed here in Hamilton and on Hamilton Mountain.
Yeah, I would jump in and say I think our province has also mandated that all 444 municipalities have a community safety and well-being plan. I was the co-chair of Hamilton's community safety and well-being plan, where we talked about these things. We talked about homelessness, substance use, mental health. So under an Ontario NDP government, we are going to make sure municipalities are funded through this mandated policy. And I have been doing that work. I don't think my colleagues here were even talking about these issues during the pandemic and after the pandemic. And quite frankly, I think they have joined because it's election time.
And if I may add, you know, it's interesting that you've been involved in that committee and that work. But again, I fundamentally disagree that defunding the police and removing funds from police in Hamilton, which are funded at the lowest per capita in Ontario, is a solution. Certainly, we do need to boost funding for mental health supports and other supports. But supporting encampments, supporting, you know, loss of income for police is not the solution.
Let's make this clear. The city of Hamilton, and I believe your husband which is the current councillor of Ward 8, he actually voted for the encampment protocol. This is what liberals do. Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Was
this
needed
is what
because your supporters were suing
my
the city.
supporters.
Your
I was
supporters
not
were suing the
elected.
city.
I was not elected. The city council is responsible for parks. So if your husband, Councillor Danko, was the one that voted for parks to be intense, when they were doing that encampment
So,
protocol,
you
I
know-
delegated at city council.
You
I
delegated to
delegated at city
support
council
encampments.
asking that is not the response that is needed. What is needed is affordable homes. The Ontario NDP is going to create affordable homes. We are going to ensure that there's a rental cap so that people can afford the rent that they need to have a good life. Here on the mountain, we have 30% of people that are renters. These are people that are struggling. We heard about demo evictions, rental evictions. This is something that City Council has failed at. And in fact, your husband has contributed to this. Liberals create the problem and blame someone else. Conservatives make the cuts and say they are cutting taxes. Liberals and conservatives are the same old story, never solving our problems.
And of course, my
I think
husband
the
is
same-
not
I think
the
The same
person.
old story here is that the NDP for the last 4 years, after the leaving of Andrew Horvath from the leadership, elected a coronated leader in Marit Stiles, and she spent the last 3 years in the House of Commons, at Queen's Park, constantly complaining about what Doug Ford's doing wrong. She's not promoting real solutions. In fact, I would disagree with a lot that's going on, and real solutions are coming from the Green Party in Ontario. A lot of the plans that have come out today are copycats of what the Green Party put forth months ago. Mr. Danko, I disagree with you when it comes to you saying that
I'm not
I
Mr.
haven't been-
Danko. I'm not Mr.
Sorry.
Danko.
Mr. Dempsey, I disagree with you in the sense that you say that we haven't been working. As educators in this community, as a member of our schools, I spend every day with my students who come to me hungry, who come to me not having what they need. And guess who's providing that out of his own pocket? Me. Because
Yeah.
education isn't funded properly
So
in this
blame
province.
Doug Ford and don't blame the official opposition.
But the
Also,
official opposition is the government in
would
waiting,
like
Mr.
to-
Lastly, I'll also mention that.
Sorry, my husband was mentioned. I
liberal-
would like to correct the record on that. He is not the person who is running for this election. I am running for this election. I'm Dawn Danko, in case you missed that. The encampment protocol was necessary because the city was being sued by people that I believe have supported your campaign and have been at your parties.
That is not
that have been
true.
sued
Let's have
to
Dawn
challenge.
Danko- let's have Dawn Danko
that
finish her
the city
response.
had to allow people to camp in parks. The protocol allowed us to maintain specific park spaces that were available for families, seniors, that were supposed to be maintained safely, but it gave us, the city, an opportunity to control some of the spaces. Now that that is done, we do not have the encampment protocol, and my husband actually moved the motion to remove that because we need to move to shelter spaces, we need to move to wraparound supports, we need transitional housing, which was not supported by the Encampment Support Network, which I believe you're closely connected to, because they don't believe people should be in tiny shelters. But tiny shelters are a solution that allow people to get set up, to get support, and then get into transitional
I believe
and
that's
permanent
been
housing.
1 minute. What I would say is, again, liberals always create the problem and blame someone else. When you were chair or vice chair, there was a proposal to have people use Sir
Yes, I
John
supported that.
Yeah, you did not.
I
Well,
did
did you
support that.
implement it? That was a failure.
I
That was
supported that.
That
The
was
city
a
was
failure.
unable to support that.
That was a failure.
the school
you
board
did not,
and
you
myself
did
as
not
the
stand
chair,
up. You did not
I
stand
absolutely
up
did.
to advocate.
That is a lie. That is a lie. So I absolutely stood up. I was working with hats. They started as huts and changed to hats. We were looking at providing access to the Sir John A. Macdonald site. The building unfortunately had a flood and had significant mold that we were not able to use the building
Again,
itself.
always
but we
blaming
had
someone
an
else.
opportunity.
Let's also say
Sorry,
this.
blaming mold.
Let's also say
that is
this.
a health and safety
the
concern.
The project at Barton Tiffany's. Let's think about this for a second. Why would we want to put anybody on polluted land? And you have also voted for schools to be on polluted land. So this is what we are seeing here in Hamilton. We have politicians who are politically involved only when it suits their interest. We have you
So,
who
I
has
don't have
voted
personal
for
interest.
schools on polluted
love
land.
to
Now
understand
we're
what you're
saying that we
talking
should
about.
have shelters. at a land that is polluted.
So you do
How
know
is that
land-
dignified? How is that dignified
I would
living?
hope that if you're running for government, that you do understand how government works. And school boards are given land that we are required to build schools on for new development. That isn't something we vote on.
Thank you very much to our candidates. It's going to be a lively discussion tonight. We will continue on now to our next question from the media panel from CHCH, Manisa Donabalan. Manisa.
Thank you. For all the candidates, if your party were to form government, what's your plan to balance urban development and protecting green space? I'll start with Dawn.
Thank you. So the Ontario Liberal Party actually created the Green Belt to protect our precious farmland that we absolutely need to preserve. That's something that we saw being ripped out from under us under Doug Ford, and it took a grassroots effort because the NDP was ineffective in challenging Doug Ford. It took a grassroots municipal effort across Ontario to really pause that. Unfortunately, there's now still an opportunity for that development to happen because developers can go through the land tribunal. But as a party, we are committed to protecting greenbelt farmland and not developing on it. We want to make sure that we invest in development that provides infill in our communities. We have tons of land in our urban communities where we can intensify our growth, but we also have to invest in public transportation because that is required if we're going to build up, if we're going to intensify, we need to make sure people can get around in their communities, and that's part of the Liberal platform.
Thank you for that response, Don. Open forum now for anyone else that would like to respond. Kojo.
I am glad this question has come up, right? The Liberal candidate keeps saying that the Liberals created the Green Belt. We will give them that credit. But at the same time, they are the ones that are taking money from developers and they're saying they're going to protect the Green Belt. I think that is ludicrous. Look, the Liberals are taking money from developers. The Conservatives are giving $8.3 billion to Conservatives, and we are a party of the people. Right here in Hamilton, I was involved in the Stop Sprawl movement. I was part of the Greenbelt Promise Committee where we spoke to people from Toronto, Milton, Oakville, Burlington, name it. So we have been involved. I have been involved even before running for elected office. And this is what I'm saying. We need leaders who are doing the work, not only showing up when it's election time. And I can tell you, I have done this work, and that is why I'm putting my name forward to continue the legacy of the ONDP up here on the mountain. And we are going to keep this riding.
Thank you,
orange.
Kojo. Josh, would you like to get in on this?
My friends, the Green Party have a real plan for urban development in this community. We want to continue to build fourplexes and 4-story buildings across Ontario. Mid-rise buildings, 6 to 11 stories along major transit routes, so we can get our cars off our streets and we can use the public transit that we have coming to us. That means building along the LRT route that's coming to Hamilton. We need to build those apartments so that they're ready to serve the people. We're going to build 6plexes in cities over 500,000 over 500,000. It's another important initiative. We want 60,000 new homes built for people that need them the most. You know, in my own community of Hamilton Mountain, in the Larch Street community, there are 2 houses right now that have sat vacant for almost 2.5 years. And when I've called the city to talk about it, I get told there's just not enough money. There's not enough money to fix those houses. But those houses could be turned into 2-unit houses for people in our community who can live in real communities where they belong, not in Tiffany lands necessarily. Tiffany lands is a great start with great wraparound support.
Josh, thank you very much. We got to continue to move on. Anyone else like to jump in on this particular
Absolutely.
topic?
Again.
Let's have Dawn go. She spoke up first.
Yeah, I do want to just highlight that, the NDP is promising to build homes, but they seem to fail to recognize who builds those homes. And it is the development community. Developers are one of the biggest drivers of our economy here in Hamilton. If we didn't have them developing, we would be losing so many jobs for skilled workers, skilled trades. The fact is, we need to work with developers, and they're important members of our community that if we don't work with them, we are not going to build the way we want. And when we work against them, that's when we see development that people do not like in their neighborhoods. So I am proud that that my campaign has received support from business leaders across Hamilton. I think that is a critical piece of moving our economy forward. And I think the NDP lives in a fantasy if they don't understand who actually does building in our community.
Yeah, well, let's be clear. They are developers, not business community members. You took money from developers, and this is what has gotten Ford's Conservative into an RCMP investigation. The same individual that donated to your campaign hosted Doug Ford at his mansion, where they were raising funds for the Conservatives, and again discussing which land parcels would be taken from the Greenbelt. So I think you shouldn't. Let me finish. You shouldn't be taking money from developers. Nobody is denying that they build homes, but we have different ways of building homes. We have non-for-profits, we have land trusts, we have co-ops, and they are right here in Hamilton, on the mountain. We have Kiwanis. We have other co-ops right across our mountain. Those are the things that we want to do because we don't want to be influenced by developers. We've seen it with Doug Ford's Conservatives, and right here, Hamilton, you heard it, right here, we should be working with developers. They have their business, they are only in it for the profits. We want to make sure we are building houses that you deserve.
Kojo, thank you. I know Josh wanted to get in, and then we'll go to Don. Josh.
I think what's missing in this debate and what we're not hearing is that people in the NDP, and it was said, Marit Stiles said it herself, she wants to create a bureaucracy to build houses. We don't need another bureaucracy. We have co-op housing. We have not-for-profits in this city who can help us build right away. And that's what the Green Party stands for, and that's what the Green Party will work with. We don't need another bureaucracy that's going to spend millions and millions of dollars under an NDP government to build houses or to decide where and when to build houses. We need to build houses now. It needs to happen now. And we need to use the services like our co-ops and our not-for-profit homes right here in Hamilton, right here across Hamilton Mountain, to be able to get that done. That's what community is about. And let me tell you, as the Green Party candidate, one of the things my leader, Mike Schrenner, always tells us is that he wants us to go out and be local champions. I will not be caught in policy problems in my party, and I will bring real change for Hamilton Mountain and build houses fast.
Thank you. And of course, I think we can all agree that scandals have happened. Doug Ford is under investigation along with people in his government. That is not what we're talking about. Campaign donations, they're open, they're transparent, happy for people to look at that. One thing under the Liberal Party that I think is important is we are planning to bring affordability, predictability, and fairness back to the rental market. And that includes getting more co-op and rental apartments built. And we can do that by removing punitive, discriminatory extra taxes like the community benefits charges. We are planning to implement fair, phased-in rent control. We want to resolve landlord-tenant disputes in under 2 months. Right now, there's a massive backlog. But the fact is, we still need to build, and we still need to be working with those people who are building in our communities. And some of the incentives that developers and business people in our community like is the fact that we're looking at removing development charges and moving them to the provincial level, and that will actually rapidly increase housing starts and reduce affordability.
Thank you very much. And I will let Kojo finish off because I know there were some comments about the NDP before we get into our next question. Kojo, if you like.
I think this election is about who you can trust, who has done the work before party platforms were mentioned and all of that. Like I said, I have been talking about housing. I spoke about it when I ran for council in 2022. This is not the first time I'm speaking about it. I spoke about the protection of the Greenbelt, the Stop Sprawl movement, where we were able to mobilize over 20,000 people here in Hamilton. I've been doing this work. Hamilton Mountain residents, all we need is a local person that has been doing the work even before this election was called.
Kojo, thank you very much. And to all of our candidates, thank you again for that lively discussion from our media question from CHCH. We'll continue on now from CBC Hamilton with Eva Salinas. Eva.
Thank you. In recent years, schools have struggled with several issues: absenteeism, staffing shortages, safety concerns in the classroom, and support needed for marginalized students. If elected, and Josh, I'll start with you, what changes are at the top of your list when it comes to improving the quality of education, and what are the pathways to those changes?
Well, it's a great question, and thank you for it. because every day I go to work and I see my students struggle. And it's annoying and it's frustrating as a teacher in this community. The first thing the Green Party is going to do is we are going to increase funding per student by $1,500. That's not taking away or adding, that's adding to what we already fund them, which is very little considering what Doug Ford's done to public education. We need to fix our school infrastructure. That is going to be key in the plan to get the backlog that's been created by the previous Liberals, the Conservatives. There's a huge backlog in infrastructure. I know that my fellow candidates know that. That's something we will work towards. We want to get more money into special education, making sure that our education support workers are paid properly. I can't tell you how many times I have education support workers in my school go home injured, spend time off on leave because they've been hit, because we don't have the supports necessary for our students in our classrooms. I don't even in my classroom have enough textbooks for my students. And every time we bring in technology, it's outdated the minute we turn it on in our classrooms. And technology costs a lot. We need to bring back a real simple plan for education. We need to bring back stop the cuts that have happened under the Doug Ford government.
Mr. Chernega, thank you very much for that opening answer. It's now open forum for anyone that would like to respond.
I'd love to jump in as a school board trustee who has been working and serving the community for over 10 years, not just during an election cycle. Under the Liberal platform, there's some really exciting investments that we would make. One, we are funded at 2018 levels for our school infrastructure, which means that's a massive cut that the Ford government has done. We would be clearing the school repair backlog, installing heating and air conditioning, which is so needed on the Hamilton Mountain with our older infrastructure, by doubling the annual capital funding for schools. That's huge. That gives people the space they need to learn and thrive. We would be building 90 new schools over the next 4 years across Ontario and make sure schools do not need to have portables or minimal use of portables. Lower the student to teacher and education worker ratio, which is such a critical piece when you have students whose needs are not met. By lowering the ratio, we know we can better meet their needs and better have safety in the classroom. Hire more mental health professionals, educational assistants, early childhood educators, social workers. These are all critical roles in our schools. Also, feed every elementary and secondary student by quadrupling the amount of money that is currently funded for school food programs. And we know that is a critical piece, as Josh mentioned.
Don, thank you. Kojo?
Yes, I was speaking to a mother who had a child with disabilities, and she talked about how there are certain days where there are not enough resources and her daughter has to stay at home. The Ontario NDP is going to invest in our public education system. We're going to invest $800 million to ensure that we're working on that maintenance backlog. I have spoken to the Hamilton Elementary Teachers Union, who endorsed me. I've also spoken to the Ontario Secondary School teachers, who have also endorsed me. So we're going to reduce those class sizes. We're going to ensure that we're providing more resources for teachers to make sure that those ratios are appropriate, so that our students and our children will have the proper time for teachers to spend with them, so that they can learn and thrive in our education system. So those are the things that we are committed to. I have also spoken to both unions from the Catholic Education Board, and I've made that commitment that we are going to invest in our public education system.
Mr.
What
Chernega?
I find most interesting about the NDP's plan is they've been the government in waiting for many years now. And they talk about these things, but nothing ever changes. Nothing ever happens. We have a plan to put students first in the Green Platform. And funny enough, if you look at the NDP's platform today, that they finally put out today, as opposed to the Green Party, who put out a costed platform much sooner and much quicker, because we know what the needs of Ontarians are. They copied a majority of our platform and put it into theirs. Why is that? Because the Greens do present real solutions for this community. They truly do care about our communities and putting students first and putting people first. Province-wide, we are going to create a province-wide food program by 2030 so that no child ever comes to school hungry. We're going to make sure that teachers don't have to spend their own money out of their pockets. I cannot tell you as a teacher the amount of money that I spend to make sure my students get what they deserve. And that's what's important.
Josh,
and my
thank-
colleagues are the same.
Thank you for that, Josh. I know we have a couple of responses. We'll go with Mr. Damptey first.
Yeah, again, this election and this riding is about who has been doing the work, right? In 2021, I worked with the Ministry of Education to write a report around community safety and well-being for students in Hamilton. We wrote a 100-page report that had recommendations. We presented it to Minister Steve Lecce at the time, and some of those recommendations have been adopted in both the Catholic and the public board. Some of the unions have also used that. So again, colleagues here today are talking about party this, party that. Yes, but at the same time, too, we need a local leader who has done this work, not just talk about it, but has actually done the work. And I'm proud to say that I have done the work, and the actions are present in our school system today.
I know the Liberal Party wanted to get involved with this.
Absolutely. And of course, I want you to know the liberal platform. But as I've said, you know me, you know what I stand for and what I do. And I was the chair of the board as we led an anti-bullying study and platform and study. That is what we implemented in our school system. It was not the 100-page report that I'm hearing about now. We did that locally. Here in Hamilton, we consulted with our local community because we needed local solutions. And we're still continuing important work on that. But I think it's important that, you hear the passion in Josh's voice as an educator. The fact is, the person who we should be talking about right now is Doug Ford and the candidate who is not here. And it's really important that people realize how much Doug Ford has cut funding to education. They can talk about funding it at the highest levels at all time because of inflation, but when you factor in inflation and you look at what they're spending per pupil, as mentioned, it's $1,500 less per pupil than when they took government. And I think that's a critical piece that we don't want to forget. This debate has 3 people here. We're missing an important 4th person that isn't here.
I am being told we do have to move on. I know there's lots of extra information that we want to be said. We can say it in our closing statements, perhaps, if there is time for that. Okay, so thank you. Thank you very much. And of course, thank you to our media for that first round of questions from the panel. As mentioned earlier, we have been collecting questions also from you, the people, the viewers on X, at Cable 14 and by email to elections@cable14.com. We'll give all of our candidates here a chance to respond to this as you wish. This question came in from Hamilton Mountain resident Anthony Frazina, who happens to also host Above and Beyond right here on Cable 14. Anthony wants to hear about your overall plans for accessibility. He asks, what are your short and long-term accessibility goals and how will you accomplish them? We will start with Mr. Damptey.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think, again, when I was the executive director of the Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion, I worked closely with the Disability Justice Network of Ontario, who have done great work around disability justice here in Hamilton and across the province, talking about raising ODSP and OW. We also pushed the city to clear sidewalks for mothers who have to use strollers and seniors that have to use mobility devices. When I ran for City Council in 2022, I talked about implementing the AODA Act, which is supposed to be fully implemented by 2025. And I think the Doug Ford Conservatives have not done that work. And I can tell you that personally, I am committed to ensuring that the AODA Act has tooth and is implemented, and will make sure that municipalities, businesses really understand why it's important to comply with the AODA.
Kojo, thank you for that. Open for discussion now.
I can jump in. So as people probably know, accessibility for infrastructure has not been funded for education under the Doug Ford government. And so under my leadership, while I was chair of the board and a trustee at the board, we have had to make purposeful decisions to invest money into accessibility. That's the physical piece of it. But we've also made purposeful decisions to invest in technology to make learning more accessible for students. And in my work at the post-secondary level, I help build programs, and I help work with faculty who have to make sure that their resources, everything is accessible to their students. And there's so many different ways we need to look at this and make sure that we're advocating for it. The Liberal government will absolutely increase investment to make sure we have the infrastructure that we need, but also that we are training people for the future, because accessibility technology keeps changing and we have to keep up with it to make sure we're meeting everyone's needs.
From the Green Party, we 100% want to see the AODA implement it 100%. We need to create more accessibility in Hamilton. You talk about, Mr. Dempsey, you've talked tonight about the city shoveling sidewalks. Guess what? That costs money. And Doug Ford has spent this entire 4 years wasting our money, spending $2.2 billion on Ontario Place. That money could have been used to upload services back to the province, where we could then as a city have money to be able to afford some of the things that we need to do. I know that this city council would love nothing more than make sure that they could shovel every sidewalk and build a ramp at every library, build a ramp at every public pool, and make everything accessible in this city. But the sad point is we don't have the money to do that in this city because Doug Ford keeps downloading and downloading and downloading to us. And then we go to our taxpayers and go, we need to give you a 6, 7, 8% increase. And guess what? Our taxpayers are struggling. So if we want to make accessibility real, we need to upload those things to the province. And that's what a Mike Schreiner government will do.
Thank you very much for that, Josh. Kojo, I know you like to get involved.
Yes, and again, this theme keeps coming up. My colleagues are talking about what their party is going to do. Here in Hamilton in 2021, I worked with 13 non-for-profits where we released 135-page report called the Just Recovery Hamilton Report. And we highlighted some of the issues around disability and why it's important for municipalities and our province to ensure that they understand the issues around disability justice. We are not only talking about, yes, we need money, but then also, if we do not address these issues, what is going to happen is people with disabilities or folks with disabilities are going to be excluded from engaging in civic engagement. We have people that are not going to go out, and this affects our whole well-being of the community.
Kojo, thank you very much for that. And to our panel, we do have to continue on. We have another question that has come in from Malcolm, who says he lives in Ward 7 on the mountain. Malcolm asks, how would you truly address the crisis of violence against educational workers in Hamilton's publicly funded school system that's causing some of them to leave? We will start with Mr. Chernega on this one.
This is such an important issue. And Malcolm, I thank you for this question because I see education workers every day leaving this profession. We are so short that there are days in my school where we don't have people to support our special needs children and our children with higher needs. We actually have times when we've had to send children home because we don't have the support for them. And that shouldn't happen in a province like the province of Ontario. That should never happen. Under a Mike Schreiner government, we're going to make sure we pay our EAs well. We are going to make sure that our educational assistants are taken care of, that they are treated properly, and we're going to look at an actual plan to embrace student behaviors and how do we do that in a school. But we can't do that without support. We can't do that without funding. And this Doug Ford government continues to cut and cut us to nothing. And we have no way of doing it. We are worn out in our public education system, but I can promise you under a Mike Schreiner government, we are going to invest like never before and ensure that our kids are taken care of to the best because they're our future.
Thank you very much.
I stand here today because of that.
Josh, thank you. Dawn, would you like to get involved with this?
Absolutely. Just acknowledging that this is a real crisis in our schools, and it does come down to funding and staffing, but also supports for children with special needs. The fact is, talking to the Ontario Autism Coalition, people are on wait lists for up to 5 or more years to access funding for therapy that actually would support their child. And when children's needs are met, we don't have this level of violence in the classrooms. Right now, school boards are finding that about 30% of sick calls for educational assistants are not filled every day. So that means we're short-staffed, people are stretched thin, and it just makes the system untenable. I have advocated to the government and actually made some gains for fair working wages for educational assistants in particular and our lowest paid workers because they barely make a living wage. In some cases, they don't. And we actually saw the Ford government respond to that in a small way and in the last increase, but we need to do better. We need to have more training. We need to have better staff. And to do that, to recruit and to retain staff, we actually need to pay them a proper wage.
Thank you from the Liberal Party. Final word will go to the NDP before we have to move on.
Yes, I think all the educational workers, their respective unions, have spoken about this at length, right? So some of them have also offered recommendations. We are going to work with them to implement those recommendations and ensure that everybody in the public sector is safe when they are in the workplace.
Thank you very much for those responses from our candidates, and thank you to everyone who submitted questions. Again, we are doing our best to get as many questions as we can to our Hamilton Mountain candidates in time that we have available. Now, that wraps up round one of the question and answer period of this debate. Before we continue with more questions by any candidate not invited to participate in our debate tonight, had the opportunity to record a statement. Let's hear now from the two Hamilton Mountain candidates who recorded a statement. Ijaz Butt, followed by Layla Marie Angela Protopapa.
Hello, my name is Ijaz Butt, and I am privileged to be here today. I will keep this brief, but I understand the day-to-day struggles that Ontarians deal with in general, and Hamiltonian deal in particular. I am a former military officer and immigrated to this great city in 1987 with my family and have been here almost 40 years. I have run several businesses here and held community leadership positions such as President of Muslim Association of Hamilton and first ever founding President of the Ontario Taxi Worker Union. And now I am the chairman of the Pakistan-Canada Business Organization. While these roles are not without challenges, I led these organizations to the best of my ability. My goal is, as elected MPP, would be to make Hamilton a top attractive city to live, work, and to enjoy the economic growth, promoting safety and security, and protecting the environment. There are several challenges we face, including inflation and continued threats of American tariff. I will work tirelessly as your MPP to ensure that Hamilton interests, ranging from protecting manufacturing industry to ensuring there are more family doctors and nurses, are in front and center during these unpredictable times. Last but not the least, why I am running as an independent candidate. Because myself and most of the people I have met are convinced that no political party is better than the other one. They all are same. Therefore, if I win, I will join the majority party to make it easy to serve my constituency better. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lila Protopapa, and I'm honored to represent the New Blue Ontario Party for Hamilton Mountain. With Doug Ford's snap election being called 16 months too early, capitalizing on the fear of the trade tariffs with Trump's administration, Ontarians are once again hitting the election polls, wondering, who should I vote for? The Progressive Conservatives again? This is the same party that has been in power for the last 7 years and has been fiscally and socially irresponsible with Ontarians' tax money. Can we afford to trust him for another 4 years? Do we want to hand him the reins of power to destroy the green belts, who got rid of the OMB to permit high rises at a scaling rate to be built all over GTA and Hamilton? Some more with additional sprawling projects too. Ford destroyed Ontario Place. Ford sold Ontario Place for just $14 million when in fact it's worth $1.3 billion. This speaks volumes to how he operates. It is simply just scandalous. There was a backlash in the courts to save Ontario Place, but to no effect. What about changing the laws to preserving heritage homes? Ford got rid of this too. He demolished historical homes and churches to make way for condos, removing the beauty of past landmarks. You will continue to see more of this. What happened to health care? His fiasco with imposing draconian policies of laying off doctors and nurses because of the COVID mandates, infringing on one's bodily rights to not take the experimental biohazard injection to keep their job, and their oath to not do bodily harm to other people. We can't turn a blind eye and pretend this is okay, can we? Can we, as accountable citizens, live with workers who still today, since 2020, cannot find work and get employed because they chose to protect their bodily rights? On February 27th, vote for the new Blue Party, an anti-woke party. I'm Lila Protopapa, and I'm looking for your vote to represent you.
Thank you very much to Ijaz Butt and Layla Marie Angela Protopapa for recording those statements earlier. For our viewers at home, if you miss any part of this broadcast or want to see candidates from the other Hamilton area ridings, you'll find all of our debates on demand at cable14.com, all free for public viewing, and all sharing courtesy of our good friends at Kojiko and Rogers as of 12 a.m. this Saturday, February the 22nd. Okay, Hamilton, let's move on now to round two of tonight's media questions. Once again, from the Hamilton Spectator, Sebastian Braun.
Thanks, Mike. Josh, this one's for you. You used to serve on the executive branch of the NDP, and in 2021, you briefly ran for the federal nomination in this same party, or rather in this same riding. Why have you chosen to leave the party and go green?
Thank you for the question, and I'm glad it came up this evening. I spent a lot of time. I was a hand-picked CFO for the Ontario NDP. Monique Taylor endorsed me as the candidate federally. But what I slowly saw was the decay after Marit Stiles took over. I saw the yelling, the screaming across the floor, the telling me what Doug Ford has done wrong, why he's done it wrong, but never once presenting solutions. I had an opportunity to meet Mike Schreiner at an ETFO conference, a place that changed my hope for Ontario. Mike Schreiner presented solutions. He got up to that mic. He didn't read off a paper. He didn't read off a teleprompter. He didn't read off his telephone. He presented solutions for education and for healthcare and for other things in our province. And that's what we need. We need people who are going to be local champions for the Hamilton Mountain area. People like me who were born and raised on the mountain.
Josh, thank you for that response. So we will now open this up for debate. If anyone would like to have some extra comments.
If I can just add,
Please.
looking at options on the mountain, one option would have been to run for the NDP. But when I looked at who had real solutions, as mentioned, and where there's an opportunity for influence. Oftentimes when you have large parties that are established, you're told what to do as a politician. And, I've heard that time and time again from people that are part of parties that are backbenchers. The fact is the Liberal Party is a new Ontario Liberal Party under Bonnie Crombie, and I see that we have real solutions. And what drew me to the party was the solution around affordability and housing, and the fact that they would actually be creative and say, if we remove development charges from new builds, what would that do to our housing affordability? It's something that will actually make a difference. Looking at their plan for healthcare to get everyone a family doctor in 4 years, that's something that we've just watched, worsen over the last number of years under Doug Ford. But they actually have a real solution. They're not talking about it. They're saying how they're going to do it.
Don,
and so
thank
that
you
was
very
my
much.
choice.
We do have to continue to move on. Kojo, we will give you an opportunity.
Yes, Hamilton Mountain residents, you know the legacy of being orange. From Brian Charlton to Chris Charlton to Scott Duvall to Monique Taylor. They have served, and those are the individuals I hope to work with and also build on their legacy. They have served Hamilton Mountain residents to heights that we've never seen, and I am going to continue to do that. So again, the ask and the hope is that we keep this riding orange. We cannot afford 4 more years of Ford. We know that the Liberals and the Conservatives are the same. They take money from developers. They had chances to fix our public education and did not do that. They had chances to fix our healthcare system. Let's remember, hallway healthcare started under the Liberal government. Whether it's Bonnie Crombie, Kathleen Wynne, Dalton McGuinty.
Mr. Damptey, thank you very much.
Old story.
We do have to move on to more media questions.
There was mention of Liberals. Could I add quickly?
I will let you respond to the Liberals, yes.
Yes. Under the Liberal government, wait times in emerges were about 4 hours long. Hallway healthcare is ballooned under Doug Ford, and I don't think we can lay that at the feet of the Liberals.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Moving on with our questions from the local media. From CHCH, she's back, Manisa Donabalan. Manisa.
Thank you. This question is for Don. You've been accused of being in the pocket of would-be... You've been accused of being in the pocket of would-be Greenbelt developers in the past. What's your response to this?
As I already mentioned today, the Ontario Liberal Party built the Greenbelt, or they created the Greenbelt to protect farmland. I have always been adamantly opposed to developing on the Greenbelt. My family has been staunchly opposed, involved in the Save the Greenbelt movement. I think receiving a campaign donation for a trustee election from someone who was a prior trustee really is not about being in anyone's pocket. And I think if anyone suggests that a campaign donation means that you owe someone something, I think that's highly flawed. I can just say I absolutely support preserving the Greenbelt, and I'm not in anyone's pocket.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that question, Manisa. Thank you for your response. Kojo?
Again, this is what we're seeing with politicians. They say one thing and then do the other. And I've been talking to all of you at the doors. I met a young man who said he hadn't voted for 20 years because he feels like we have a disillusioned system. It's political theater. So a question was asked and the question was not answered. We know Sergio Mancia is a developer, gave you money, so that means that you support developers. Same with Doug Ford, and that is why there's an RCMP investigation on the Premier. Minister Steve Clark had to resign. There's an investigation. And so I am committed to making sure that I am always honest and I will not take any money from developers. I did that in my 2022 campaign, and we will continue to do that, always fighting for you.
Thank you, Mr. Damptey.
And I can just say I did answer the question. I'm not in anyone's pocket, and I've been clear and transparent about campaign donations.
Mr. Chernega?
Let's be very clear. The Green Party protects the Greenbelt. We'll expand the Greenbelt by helping urbanization and building houses urbanly. We're going to create a blue belt to protect our waterways in Hamilton. We're going to protect a food belt because with the looming threats of Donald Trump in America, we need to make sure we protect every ounce of farmland that we have in this province so that we are ready to be able to support our people. That's not what Doug Ford's doing right now. He's spending his day in Washington instead of talking to the people up here. He's telling his candidates not to come to these debates so we can have a legitimate debate about what is actually happening in our province. And what is actually happening on Hamilton Mountain is that we constantly are hearing no solutions to the problems from the NDP. We hear them telling us everything that Doug Ford does wrong. And that is irresponsible for a party that's been in opposition for 9 years.
From the Green Party, thank you very much. We'll continue on from the NDP.
Yes, and I will say that again, as one of the main supporters of the Stop Sprawl movement, we did not talk about protecting the Greenbelt. We went to City Hall, we organized, we mobilized, and it was people power. So a candidate like myself has done the work, not the words. We see the actions where people are taking money from developers. And again, Liberals, Conservatives, they are the same.
Back to the Green Party.
Mr. Dempsey, you keep talking about people not doing the work. Are you saying what I do in my classroom every day is not important? What I do to serve my students is not important? Because that's what I'm hearing from you. And that's an insult, Mr. Dempsey, to every education worker, every teacher, everybody in this province who tries every day to deal with the Doug Ford cuts. And every day on Hamilton Mountain, when I go to those doors and I hear sad stories from residents, like a 70-year-old man who has to sell his house because he can't afford to pay for his wife's home care. And you're telling me that what I do doesn't matter. And that's wrong, Mr. Dempsey. If you are truly a community organizer, you would support people who are trying to make a difference.
Thank you. We were talking about the green belt. That is what the question was about, the green belt. The question
has been said over and over again that other people are not doing the work. And I think that our Green Party candidate and myself have been very clear that we are in the community. We are here on the mountain. We live actually in the riding, and we are doing the work every day.
Yes. So the question was about the green belt. And I said, I, Kojo Damte, was one of the individuals that was on the front lines mobilizing people. I did not see any of my colleagues here. If they did any work, that's good. But what I'm saying is, I went to City Hall, mobilized people up on the mountain. I hosted a protest to save farmland on the mountain. So that is what I'm referring to.
Thank you very much to all the panel there regarding that discussion. Our next question will be coming from CBC Hamilton. Eva Salinas, please come on up.
Thank you. I'll start with Kojo on this one. We've heard various solutions from each party put forward to help solve the affordable housing crisis, from building more single detached homes to building up to rent control. Which solutions will work on the mountain, and what do you say to residents who may not want those proposals in their own neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things that we are hearing from mountain residents, and again, on the mountain, we have about 70% of people that own their houses and 30% of people that rent. So I think the solutions presented, again, supporting families with rebate checks, so that, because we know there's an affordability crisis, so we want to make sure that we're supporting them so that they have extra money to pay the mortgage, increasing property taxes. And for renters, we want to make sure that there's a full rental cap, because with when Doug Ford eliminated the rental cap in 2018, what happened was landlords were increasing rents at huge proportions and engaging in demo evictions. We've heard from Hamilton tenants in Unity, Acorn, the Legal Clinic. They are the ones that have been doing this work. And so we want to implement those two things to support property owners and renters.
Thank you very much, Kojo. Open for discussion now. Dawn?
Yes, and I think it's so critical that we're addressing housing affordability. The fact is, I have teenagers in my home, and my daughter said, I'm never going to be able to afford a home. And when you look at how wages and housing prices have diverged, that is true. The Liberal plan really looks at a number of things. I talked about development charges already, but also eliminating the land transfer tax for new home buyers, as well as seniors looking to downsize, and that can free up housing available on the mountain. But the question was around how we develop, and I think it has to happen in phases, because if we build up, we need to build a transit system that works. And right now, the biggest concern we hear from neighborhoods is it doesn't fit the neighborhood, and there's going to be too many cars and too much congestion on the road, and we see that happening up in Upper James all the time. So I think it's got to be a two-phased approach. It's not just the housing; it has to be transit as well to support that development.
Mr. Trinega?
I think one of the key things that I really enjoy about the Green Party platform, and what I think is great, is that we are going to provide $25,000 loans to homeowners who want to add affordable rental units to their properties. However, to qualify for that loan, you need to ensure us that you are going to charge a proper rent and that you're not going to raise your rent all the time. And if you do that, we may forgive that loan as well. So I think that's an important asset of what the Green Party wants to do. We know that we can't build all over, and that's why we're talking about building 4plexes and 6plexes in places like Hamilton, because those will fit into our urban communities. We don't need 30-floor complex apartment buildings being built. Look at the corner of Upper Sherman and Mohawk. Look what the plan is to build there. I can understand the neighbors' frustrations with that. But we could build a bunch of fourplexes and a bunch of sixplexes, and I bet the neighbors would be extremely happy to be able to get that in place.
To our three candidates here on the floor, thank you very much for answering those questions from our media. And again, thank you very much to our media panel one more time. Sebastian Braun from the Hamilton Spectator, Manisa Danabalan from CHCH, and Eva Salinas from CBC for joining us here at tonight's debate. Thank you so much. It is time now for our open forum. Each candidate will have a minute to raise a topic or question and ask another candidate to answer. The candidate who is asked the question will have a minute to respond without interruption. After that, anyone can jump in on the particular topic that was raised and keep the conversation going. I'll be keeping a close eye on this due to time constraints. We'll be keeping, we will be keeping a close eye on things, as I alluded to. And of course, we want to give each candidate an equal opportunity to ask their question. Now, just before tonight's broadcast, Cable 14, we randomly drew numbers to determine the order the candidates will ask their questions in. Up first, Kojo Damptey.
Yes, this question is for the Liberal candidate. You were a school board trustee, currently still a school board trustee when Ford was making cuts. And prior to that, Liberals were also underfunding our public education for years. Why didn't you fight harder for students, teachers, caregivers, and guardians?
I think it's a flawed question. So I've been fighting it very hard for students, caregivers, guardians, teachers, education workers. In fact, when we had CUPE on the picket lines, when we had any of our unions on the picket lines, I was there with them because I believe in supporting workers. We need fair wages and fair working conditions. As the chair of the board, I had quite a number of appeals to the government to call on them to do better. And I did that for all of my years as a trustee, but particularly when I was chair of the board. And then when I was the chair of the board through the pandemic, I led our community and made sure that despite the last minute changes, the stressful announcements that we got on a Friday that had to be implemented on a Monday when you had to keep your child at home, I was at the forefront of that, making sure our community had the information they need, and I advocated for the supports that we needed for our staff and schools to be successful. So again, I'd say that's a flawed question because I've been fighting hard for our communities in our schools every single day.
I would say it is not a flawed question. In 2024, 2025, Nora Francis was undercut by $2 million, Lawfield, $1 million, Ray Lewis, $882,000, Pauline Johnson, $726,000, Helen Dightwater, $694,000, to a tune of $5 million. So again, the question is, these cuts are going on, $5 million. Why should Hamilton residents trust that you would be a good MPP when in your current role, we are seeing $5 million cut to our public education schools?
Let's have Dawn have an opportunity
if I may,
to respond.
I think it's a failure to understand how the system works and how government works and how school boards work. That school boards have to pass a balanced budget. And so we make sure that we prioritize our investments. We actually have had additional investments on the mountain thanks to my advocacy. But the fact is we have to pass a balanced budget. We don't have the luxury of going into deficit. So I think, again, it's just maybe not understanding how these things work.
Mr. Chernega?
I think Mr. Dempsey misunderstands how funding works, much like Ms. Danko just told us. He misunderstands that the funding came from the Ford government. He's the one who put costs down to us. He's the one who gives us our budget. Our trustees work hard every day in all of our boards to try to build balanced budgets with less and less and less. I speak to my trustees on a regular basis, and they tell me, I want to do more, Josh. I want to give more. I understand how you're feeling, but we don't have the money because Mr. Ford and Mr. Lecce and the new Minister of Education continue to cut us every single day. So to say that a trustee board, Mr. Dempsey, is the reason why schools are underfunded, I think you're wrong. You're not, you don't get the point. The money comes from the provincial government, and your opposition, Merritt Stiles, leader, has done nothing to help get anything done for Ontario residents. That's why we need to choose the Green Party. We're the new choice for Hamilton Mountain. We're the new choice for Ontario. We've tried all the other three parties. Let's get something new going.
Thank you, Josh. Kojo?
Yes, I think what is happening here is that when trustees run, they run to protect the public education system, right? Yes, Doug Ford is underfunding all our public education. For the public school board, it is 16 million. For the Catholic school board, it is 10 million. But we need people to fight harder. That is the whole point here. Things are so bad. And if we cannot afford 4 more years of Doug Ford, and prior to that, the Liberals, we need people that are going to fight harder. That is the whole point. We need people that are going to fight hard here on the Hamilton Mountain and at Queen's Park, because we know that this work is tough and that these cuts, total 26 million cuts, is going to affect my children who are in the public education system and your children as well.
Final thoughts? We will continue on. Next question will be coming from Josh Chernega. Josh, your question, and please let us know who you'll be directing it
I'm
to,
going to
please.
address my question to Mr. Dempsey because I felt quite insulted this evening as the party candidate for the Green Party. Mr. Dempsey, I know you care about this community and you present a lot of ideas that talk about caring about this community. You present a lot of reports. Some of them I've read, some of them impress me. However, how do you justify running for a party that silenced one of your friends, especially when leadership should be about listening? Let's take the grocery rebate for one example. For example, it feels like just another short-term bribe. Are you going to hand out $150 checks every month like Doug Ford did with a $200 check when he called this election? Because that's what that plan sounds like to me. It is so convoluted about how someone would get a $150 rebate every month from the government to support them with groceries. Can you explain to me those two things? How can you run for a party that won't listen to you? I believe you're a community advocate, but I can tell you Marit Stiles, she doesn't like community advocates because she kicks them out of her party. She kicks them out of her caucus, and she puts them in the backbenches.
Response from Mr. Dempsey.
Hamilton Mountain residents, I'm fighting for you. We're talking about Hamilton Mountain. This riding has been orange for the last 14 years, and so we want to keep it orange. My work in the community has even benefited one of our colleagues here. When I led the work to restructure the City of Hamilton Board of Health, right, we had 15 councillors and 1 mayor who were responsible for public health. I led that work with community members to restructure the board so that we could have health experts and community experts on the board. And I think Don Danko is one of those members. So my community advocacy has even supported one of the candidates. So that speaks voluminously about the excellent work that I am doing. So if I can accomplish that work, can you imagine what we can do together as your next MPP for Hamilton Mountain?
Mr. Dempsey, thank you. Dawn, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you. I am a member of the Public Health Subcommittee. That is a semi-autonomous model that they're adopting in the city of Hamilton. And I'm there because I have a background in healthcare, because I represent K-12 education. And I think I bring a really important lens to that group. And it's a lens that I bring to all of the work I do. But I do think the question that's been asked is, you know, the mountain's been orange for a number of years. What has the NDP actually been able to accomplish on the Hamilton Mountain? I haven't seen the NDP be able to deliver anything for Hamilton Mountain, let alone Hamilton as a whole. Okay. So I'd love to know what it is that the NDP has actually been able to do with all of the time that they've had in power.
Yes, I will answer that question. We're thankful for MPP Monique Taylor, 14 years. One, she advocated for autistic kids. That was something that she was passionate about. You joined the Facebook group just recently because you were running for office, and Monique Taylor has been fighting for autistic kids and their families, right, to get the proper need that is needed.
But has she been able to do it? Has she implemented anything or gotten anything delivered?
Please let me finish. One of the things she was talking about was making sure that when autistic kids become adults, they still have the care and resources that family needs. The other thing she's done is she stood up and supported healthcare workers, QP 7800, listened to some of the horror stories about hallway medicine, which was started again under the Liberal government and now has ballooned under the Ford government. So when we talk about the Hamilton Mountain staying orange, that is the work that MPP Monique Taylor has done. And I am committed to continuing that work and making sure that we do it together.
I know Mr. Chernega wants to get into this. However, would you like to respond to that particular comment?
I just think, that work's important. I've worked with Monique Taylor as MPP and with me as a school board trustee. But as the perpetual opposition, the NDP has not been able to deliver any results. And I think that's the key point.
Can I speak to that? We were talking about underfunding of our public education system, and my two colleagues here were telling me that I don't understand how the funding works. Well, the opposition party is not government. The opposition party is there to hold the government accountable, right? So if you need and want things from the government, MPP Neil Lumsden, MPP Donna Skelly are the folks that you should be talking to. As an oppositional party, Monique Taylor has committed her 14 years of public service to this community, showing up for people. As I said, QP 7800, showing up for steel workers, showing up for auto workers. Those are the things that we do when we are in opposition.
Mr. Damke, thank you very much. We would like to have Mr. Chernega get involved with this.
I will never deny the great work that Monique Taylor has tried to do on this mountain, ever. I will never deny that, because she has. I was with her on many of those things. However, Mr. Damke, the opposition is the government in waiting. And I will repeat that. They are the government in waiting. They are to be promoting solutions, not telling us what is always going wrong with the Doug Ford government, but presenting real solutions to the people of Ontario. Yes, Monique Taylor did present real solutions. And yes, Monique Taylor had many of those solutions not handled by Doug Ford. However, you keep saying, you just said they're in opposition, so they can't do anything for us. So what's going to make it any different when you're in opposition?
I did not say that. I did not say that.
You did, Mr. Damke.
I highlighted.
The opposition doesn't. You said that the opposition doesn't have power.
Yes.
So what are you going to do when you're the opposition?
Because they do not control all the 30 ministries that are responsible for governing our province. So my Green colleague mentioned government in waiting. Yes, we are the government in waiting, and that is why we're going to win this election. And to win this election, we must keep Hamilton Mountain orange. That is what we are going to do.
To all of you, we do have to continue to move on with the question period. And Ms. Danko, we're going to be coming to you now. Your question, please, and who you will be directing it to, and then it will be open to discussion after the 1-minute response.
Thank you. I'm going to direct the question to my Green Party candidate here. We haven't talked a lot about the environment. We talked about the Greenbelt specifically, but we haven't really talked about how we are going to manage Doug Ford's carbon tax with the Green Party, keep that in place. The fact is, I know they like to blame the federal Liberals for the carbon tax, but the reason we have it is that the Doug Ford government got rid of the Environmental Climate Action Plan for Ontario, and under the Liberals, we would be implementing a Made in Ontario action plan that's in consultation with communities, because we know that we need to do this right. But I was wondering what the Green Party would be doing in terms of the current carbon tax that we have under Doug Ford.
So the Green Party would be looking at forming in community groups, looking into our community groups within our own communities to see what we can do to solve that carbon tax. We have a heat pump initiative. We have an electric vehicle support system. We're going to try to phase out fossil fuels. I know that in a previous debate, people talked about how are we going to do that if if Donald Trump imposes tariffs on the steel. Dofasco has had arc heaters put in place, arc fireplaces, which take down emissions. That's what we would do. We would support our industries like Dofasco, like Stelco, to ensure that they are helping them to lower their emissions. And we need to take the price of carbon and help people with it. So we would be lowering it. We would also have consultations to figure out how to do that. And we want the Greens propose funneling $2 billion a year to help community infrastructure from impacts of climate change, and farmers would be paid to adapt to part of their properties. So we're going to give people money to help them with what has gone on with the carbon tax.
Thank you for that response. Response from other candidates?
What I would say is that locally here, I have worked with, I worked with the Environment Hamilton, used to be on their board. I've worked with other climate change individuals and organizations here in Hamilton, and I intend to continue to work with them so that their voices can be brought to Queen's Park so that we can deliver on true climate justice.
Final words from anyone regarding this particular topic? Does not look like it. Okay, thank you all very much. We are going to be continuing on. We do have a few minutes remaining, and I understand we have one more question coming in. No, I'm being told by producer, we don't have a question. I know there were some people that I had to cut off, so I apologize. I believe, Ms. Danko, I cut you off one time. I apologize. Your final comments before the closing statements?
No, I appreciate the opportunity, but
Okay.
I'll leave it there.
NDP?
I am great.
Green Party?
Good.
Okay, there we go. We will get into our closing statements then. Thank you very much for that, folks. From our Hamilton Mountain candidates, going in opposite order from how we opened this debate, we're going to be getting 1 minute per candidate, starting with Josh Chernega of the Green Party. Josh.
Hamilton, it's time to make Hamilton Mountain green. Friends and neighbors, this election is a turning point for our community. Since 1995, Hamilton Mountain has been represented by all three major political parties. Now we have a chance to choose something new, to make Hamilton Mountain green. For too long, we've watched as rising costs, gridlock, broken promises made life harder for everyday people. But we don't have to settle for more of the same. We can choose a new path. One that prioritizes real solutions and puts people first. As a great author, Brene Brown, once said, empathy fuels connection and sympathy drives disconnection. It's not enough for politicians to say that they care. We need leaders who listen and who understand. By electing me, Josh Chernega, as your MPP, we can bring ideas and real leadership to Queen's Park. A vote for me is a vote for affordable housing, accessible healthcare, and strong support for our small businesses in our community.
Mr.
Tangible,
Chernega,
achievable
thank
goals
you very much.
that will
Time
improve
is
lives
up. We will have to move
right
on
here
now.
in our community.
Our next closing statement will be coming from the New Democratic Party, Kojo Damptey.
Thank you. Hamilton Mountain, we are building a campaign around hope, integrity, respect, and compassion, and action. This legacy is one that you've known, from Brian Charlton to Chris Charlton to Monique Taylor to Scott Duvall. We want to continue that orange legacy. We have seen what has happened with the Liberals, and now we're seeing what's happening with Doug Ford's Conservatives, where we have increasing rents, increasing property taxes, long ER wait times, and we have about 50,000 people that do not have a family doctor. On February 27th, we need leaders that have done the work already, that have shown they are ready to roll up their sleeves and serve you appropriately. I am asking for your vote on February 27th so that we can keep Hamilton Mountain orange. Thank you and good night.
Mr. Damptey, thank you very much from the Ontario New Democratic Party. And finally, to wrap things up from the Ontario Liberal Party, Ms. Dawn Danko.
Thank you. This is a critical election. We cannot afford another 4 years of Doug Ford. His irresponsible government spending and scandals, enough is enough. And the NDP, well, they can make all the promises they want because they aren't ever going to form government. The Ontario Liberal Party, the new Ontario Liberal Party under Bonnie Crombie, is the only party that can challenge Ford and that has strategic solutions to grow Ontario's economy by investing in workers, communities, healthcare, education, and safety, and to make life more affordable. And you'll notice it's not just a party on the ballot. You'll see a name of a candidate. On the Hamilton Mountain, you have a better choice. I'm Dawn Danko. You know me. I've worked with you. I have supported you over the past 10 years. I've been highly involved in our community. You know how deeply I'm concerned about the same concerns that you worry about and how I've acted on your behalf. If you're usually conservative but are done with Doug Ford, you have a better choice. If you're traditionally NDP, you have a better choice. On February 27th, vote Don Danko.
Thank you very much for that, Don Danko, and thank you all very much for coming out one more time, Josh Chernega, Kojo Damptey, and Don Danko. We do appreciate you making the time and also the effort to join us here at tonight's Cable 14 debates. As we continue on, I know the residents of Hamilton Mountain appreciate you making the time as well at our debates. And as we finish off, here is the full list of your Hamilton Mountain candidates. Ijaz Butt is running as an independent. Your progressive conservative candidate is Monica Sorello. Joshua Chernega is representing the Green Party. Kojo Damptey representing the New Democratic Party. Don Danko is the Liberal Party candidate. Dan Preston is running for the none of the above Direct Democracy Party. Layla Marie Angela Propata represents the New Blue Party, and Bing Wong is running for the Ontario Party. Remember, Hamilton, if you miss any part of Cable 14's local riding debates, you'll be able to find them on demand at cable14.com, free for the public viewing and all sharing courtesy of Kojiko and Rogers as of 12 a.m. this Saturday. Thanks again to our media panel from the Hamilton Spectator, CBC, and CHCH. And most importantly, Hamilton, thank you to you for watching Cable 14. We are proud to continue our long tradition of hosting our local election debates. And we look forward to continuing the tradition when the federal election is called later this year. Again, thank you to all of the candidates who participated. Get out and vote. All the information you need for voting is available online at elections.on.ca. Please do your part, and again, vote, be educated in the provincial election on or before February 27th. Hamilton, thank you, and good night.
Closed captioning for the Hamilton Provincial Candidates Debate has been sponsored by the Cornerstone Association of Realtors. Homes, not hurdles. Local realtors, advocating for attainable homes for everyone.
Hey, are you looking for the hottest game in town? Look no further. It's here on Cable 14 and it's Kiwanis TV Bingo. So if you're looking to get your game on, get out there, pick up some tickets, and join us Mondays at 7. Under the B6.
No amount of studying can guarantee a gambling win. Find tips for safer play at gamblingisrandom.ca.
Soto almost pursued the puck a little bit into the middle of the ice, and that left Crombie all alone for the scoring opportunity.